We'll call the CIP 2025-2029 5-year work plan to order. Mr. Smith, you give us the prayer and pledge, please, sir.
Father, we come once again grateful for all the opportunities you provide for us and the blessing you bestow upon us. In this opportunity, we come to prepare for future growth here in the city of Apopka. We ask for your blessing and your guidance as we prepare, oh God, to go through this comprehensive plan. Lead and guide us as only you can. In thy Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Come on down, Blanche.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Blanche Sherman, Finance Director. Tonight, we want to give you an overview of some of the major projects in our police, fire, and recreation impact fee funds. Just so you can get your input on how we want to proceed with these projects and the potential impact they may have on the impact fees associated with these funds. And the first one we'll have come up is our police chief, Chief McKinley.
I didn't know I needed backup. All right, I'm going to move fast so I can try to keep this under an hour and a half, okay?
Oh.
That was priceless, Commissioner Smith. All right, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Tonight's presentation will provide an overview of the critical improvement needs of the police department. We aim to equip you with the necessary information to understand why increasing impact fees is essential for the police department, the city, and most importantly, our residents. The city did not begin collecting public safety impact fees until 2016. Between 2000 and 2016, approximately 8,000 homes were built without these fees being collected. Based on the current rates, this resulted in a missed opportunity of over $6 million in revenue. This figure does not account for additional lost potential impact fees from industrial, office, hotel, and retail developments during the same period. The failure to collect these funds has contributed to a significant shortfall in funding, which could have been used to help finance the facilities currently required by the police department. First, we're going to go over the police training facility. At a cost, this is just a rough estimate by me. I have no earthly idea what things are going to cost, probably $50 million in today's market. I know that Kissimmee built theirs numerous years ago, probably close to 10 now for 13 million. So I can only estimate where we might be. The Gillum Training Center has become too small due to the increased staffing needs of both the police and fire departments. The fire department has expanded its training programs, requiring more space both inside and outside the facility. With growing residential areas near the firearms range, use of the range is generally restricted to Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., which limits the ability to conduct low light or night shooting. When this type of training is necessary, it must be done off-site at Shoot Straight if it's available. Additionally, the department has been unable to locate a law enforcement vehicle operation facility for emergency vehicle training. This type of training, critical for ensuring officers can safely and effectively operate vehicles during emergency responses, should ideally be conducted at every 2 years to reduce accidents and liability. Emergency vehicle operation training should also be conducted by the fire department, which has expressed an interest in utilizing the driving pad for their training exercises if one is built. Due to the growth of both the police department and fire departments, the classroom space at the Gillum Training Center has become insufficient for their increased training needs. Both of our increased training needs. I'm not trying to isolate the fire department here. I apologize if it sounds that way. The limited space also impacts defensive tactics training, which was previously conducted in the classroom. The current simulator used for training is outdated and one-dimensional, lacking advanced training scenarios such as de-escalation techniques and active shooter responses, which are essential in modern law enforcement. Having a dedicated training center would allow both departments to conduct all necessary training without the police department relying on the availability of external agency facilities. This is a current view of the firearms range. Subdivisions have been constructed on to the north, the south, and east of the range. This is a typo on my part. To the west lies the water treatment plant. This slide highlights the planned development directly east of the firearms range. The rear of some of the homes will be located approximately 242 feet from our first fire shooting lane. So you can see how close that subdivision is going to be. The developer initially had their retention pond back there, and as it comes through DRC, I'm going to request that they redo their layout. They've moved their retention pond up to the front because apparently that's the way the property drains. I don't think we can worry about the way their property drains. I don't know that we can have a home 242 feet from one of our firearms lanes, and that berm on that side of the range is not up to NRA standards. So we're going to have to do something to improve that berm on that side to ensure that we do not have a round go outside of the range. As the slides illustrate, development has encroached upon our firearms range, making the need to relocate or construct an indoor facility urgent. Given the lack of available space within the city for a new outdoor range, building an indoor range is the most viable solution. A new police training facility would include a state-of-the-art indoor firearms range, enabling comprehensive training such as firearms qualifications, tactical shooting, active shooter response, and low light shooting scenarios. The facility would also feature an emergency vehicle operations driving pad designed to ensure that our first responders can safely and effectively operate vehicles during emergency situations. This resource would be available to both the police and fire departments, supporting critical training for both teams. The facility would include an advanced training simulator to replace our outdated one-dimensional system, incorporating cutting-edge virtual reality technology to provide immersive, realistic training scenarios. The current K-9 training facility would be relocated to the new training center and expanded to offer advanced training opportunities. What many may not know is that our certified K-9 trainers not only train our own K-9 units, but they also provide training and certification courses for other agencies in Central Florida. A new defensive tactics training room will be constructed to facilitate both mandatory and operational training scenarios. Recently, we sent 6 officers to a Train the Trainer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, equipping them with the skills to train our personnel to safely and effectively subdue resisting subjects. So it's just another level of force that will reduce our injuries to both suspects and to our officers. So we're going to start training in that. We would have the opportunity to construct a dedicated SWAT obstacle course for our team members, providing a specialized training space for skill development and physical conditioning. Our existing fitness course will be relocated to the new facility, providing enhanced space and resources for training and fitness activities. Finally, the new facility will include dedicated offices for our training staff, allowing them to better coordinate and manage our training programs. The public safety complex, it's estimated the police department's part of that is $54 million. The current police department building, which was converted from an old furniture store over 30 years ago, is no longer suitable to accommodate the department's growth and operational needs. Over the past 14 years, the department has added 52 sworn officers, bringing the total to 128 onboard personnel, with an authorized number of 142 and 15 civilian staff. Every available office space is fully utilized. With the city's continued rapid growth, the department is expected to expand further, yet there is no remaining space to accommodate additional personnel or resources. The building has been tented and treated for termites at least twice, and the full extent of the structural damage caused by the termites remains unknown. Ongoing issues with a leaking roof and air conditioning problems continue to disrupt operations, underscoring the need for a more modern and spacious facility. The current communications center is facing significant challenges and limitations that affect its ability to support the growing needs of the city and the departments it serves. The center is fully built out, leaving no space to add additional dispatch consoles or 911 call taker positions. It currently handles dispatch services for Apopka, Maitland, and Eatonville police departments, as well as the Apopka Fire Department. The equipment and technology in the communications center are outdated, which may affect operational efficiency and response times in the future. Parking is insufficient for both the firemen assigned to Station 1 and the dispatch personnel. As the city and police department continue to grow, additional staffing will be required, which cannot be accommodated in the current facility. There is no dedicated break room or lunch area for the employees, forcing them to take breaks and eat inside the communications center, adding to the strain on working conditions. I don't believe it's necessary to go into much detail about about the police department or the communications center, as I trust you all are familiar with the facilities and the challenges that we face in each one of them. As you can see, the need for updated facilities is urgent. The police department's facilities have not been updated, nor have any new ones been built in over 25 years. We are currently in an architectural and design phase of the public safety building. And as we all know, the costs are significantly higher than originally anticipated. The requested increase in impact fees is essential to help cover the expenses of this facility. We have allocated $100,000 in the current budget to complete the needs assessment for the training facility. It is crucial that we proceed with the increase in impact fees to help cover the cost of these facilities and alleviate some of the financial burden on our current residents. The need for these facilities arises from the city's significant growth over the past decade, as well as the expected future expansion. By increasing impact fees, the cost of constructing these facilities will be more equitably shared between both current and future residents. With that, I will answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Chief McKinley?
I hope that I've demonstrated there's a significant need. We're significantly lacking. We're falling behind. We're going to fall behind in our training, in our facilities. We need to modernize the Apopka Police Department.
So the question that I have is, I don't understand how a residential community got built behind the fire range, or why we even allowed it, but it's there.
Well, two of the one to the north and south have been there for quite a while, well before I even
Really?
got here. It's the one to the east that's being proposed, and it's they're staying within. They're not even asking for land use change. They're staying within their 5 homes per acre, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah.
So they're staying within their land development rights.
Mm. Well, I know you've been a great advocate since I remember you being here. Even just a year, you realized that we were already outgrowing the facilities. Have we ever thought of using, and you may not like what I'm going to say, Camp Weewa? I mean, Camp Weewa is what, like over 59 acres? To use that for some of the training?
Well, I think we'd have to, to put a building there or something, we'd have to clear an awful lot of Camp Weewa. We have, as I've proposed in my budget presentations the last 2 years, we have 10 acres right next to where the fire department's training center is, the combined training center right now. But we can turn over the Gillum Training Center on that area to the fire department, and on the 10 acres right next to it, which is just behind that dry retention pond, build the police facility. So all of our training facilities are there, so they're also shared amongst each other if we locate it on that property. And it's my understanding, talking to Richard Earp, that we can work some way through that dry pond to make a road into a police training facility, but still have them organized to where if the fire department needs the driving pad, they can use it. If they need our classrooms, they can use it. If we need their classrooms, we can use them. So it would be, a benefit to both of us to have a shared facilities, but separate facilities at the same time, because they're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to grow in resources and needs for training. I can't really underscore, we have the Lake County Sheriff's Office driving pad for March, under the stipulation that the academy that's going through the Lake Tech Academy in March doesn't need it. If they need it, we're getting bumped. That will be approximately 4 years that we have not had LEVO training. And we need the LEVO training for liability purposes, if nothing else. But, LEVO training also teaches them how to respond in an emergency situation, and how to respond to people doing things that people do when you're driving with lights and sirens on around you. And we have not had a facility to do that. We need a dedicated facility. I don't know if the fire department's done it, but I know when I was at the sheriff's office, the Orange County Fire Department used the Orange County Sheriff's Office driving pad for their trucks and their ambulances and everything else, so that they are equipped to drive in an emergency mode too.
So are any of the facilities that you're looking to build something that we can rent or with other agencies?
We would have I don't want to mislead you. Are we going to rent them to cover the cost of the building? Absolutely not.
No.
Could we rent them and have an income coming in for the upkeep of the building? Absolutely. Our range currently is used by Windermere at times, Oakland at times. Ocoee's building an indoor range. Unfortunately, they're building it too small. It's not we would take up the whole range to try and keep our people qualified, our personnel qualified. So, you know, that's where we're at with it. I mean, it's a challenge, and I don't know what we can do.
Mrs. Sherman, are we going to go over the actual impact fees that are recommended at the end? Yes. Okay, I got questions at the end, so that, but I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and ask the question. Uh, we're talking about building Station 7 out at Killer Park. So is there going to be a need for an additional substation for the police department? And so should that be included in this?
There will be eventually. I think that we can make it through the build out.
I think you turned the mic off, I think. Oh, no, okay, you did. Oh, it's just, okay.
I'm just touching my notebook, I think. There will be a need. I think that we can push that out past the need of the training center. You know, initially I had the substation up to the north in my presentation to work on, but a training facility, because of our range condition and the size of our agency, the size of the fire department, is taking precedent over that substation to the north. Will we need one up there eventually? Yes, we will, but we are going to open, you know, the new building. As the new building is supposed to be open, I think that, you know, it might be built out to the needs of 2035, but then we're going to have space to go out to 2042. So we should be able to occupy that building before we need somebody, a substation up to the north. You have to remember that we're not like the fire department. We're out. We're not in the station when we're not on calls for service, when we're on calls. So we're deployed throughout the city the whole time. Eventually, we will need one to service the community up there so they don't have to drive all the way down here for resources. Our investigators can be there available to them and everything else. But I think that we need to push that back past the new building, the public safety building, and the training facility. The training facility, to be honest with you, is starting to become critical.
Any other questions for Chief McKinley? Okay,
All right. Thank you for your time.
come on down, Will.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Will Sanchez, Interim Fire Chief. This evening, I come to present two major projects that are contributing to the higher proposed impact fees. The Public Safety Building, the Fire Department allocation of $32.3 million, and Fire Station 7 proposed for the northwest section of the city, estimated at $6 million. Just like you heard from Chief McKinley, identical to that, the fire department did not also start collecting impact fees until 2016. Between 2000 and 2016, 8,056 homes were built, approximately about $6 million in additional revenue that could have been collected as far as to fund future projects for the fire department. The failure to collect this impact fees during this period truly left us behind for what we need today. The current fire department building was dedicated as an emergency operating center, police and fire station in 1966. Over 58 years ago, this building can no longer accommodate the fire department's growth and operational needs. In 2006, the Fire Station 1 received an addition of a second story for personnel sleeping quarters and a remodel to the downstairs. Over the past 18 years, the department expanded beyond the capacity of our current facility. In 2006, we had 13 personnel assigned to Station 1. Today it houses 17 personnel. The upstairs sleeping quarters is maxed out with 16 beds, and the current station, even with the addition, was not designed for the amount of people it currently houses. The existing facility does not accommodate for the current fire department or future workforce. With the current truck configurations and taking into account full staffing, we would need a larger footprint. The aging infrastructure does not support the demands of the modern day fire department. Trucks are larger, they're longer than those that were utilized with current Station 1 was designed and built in 1966. There's no room for storage. Station officers need space. They need to manage their employees and need to have a space to have a one-on-one instructional conversation with its employees. Today, it's an open floor plan. There is no individual location where they can sit down with them, coach them, mentor them on a one-on-one basis. The station needs to support as far as a kitchen that cooks for the amount of personnel, toilets, showers. It's not conducive for co-ed living and no further room for growth within the station or fire administration. Parking, as Chief said earlier, is shared between the health clinic, finance, IT, and dispatch. The number of parking spaces is insufficient for the fire department's need. There's a total of 70 parking spaces. 46 of those spots are available in the mornings. It's a first come, first served basis. With 56 cars and 46 available spots, not counting any visitors or anybody using the gym or students, we have 17 coming in the morning, 17 leaving. We also have 9 dispatchers coming in at any given time and leaving. The current Fire Station 1 and fire administration are facing significant challenges and limitations that affect the ability to support the growing needs of the city. Fire Station 1 has no more room for expansion. Fire administration currently has multiple staff members sharing offices. With a lack of storage, some offices also serve as dual roles and store equipment. Currently, our training captain, we built him an office out of the closet that we had at the training center. The training chief shares an office with the EMS chief. We're short a deputy chief right now as I'm filling in the interim spot, but there's no office for that position. And we're adding on 2 fire inspectors. We've actually accommodated 2 desks for them in our common area, but also our life safety chief shares the office with the health safety lieutenant. Suppression chief stores all the truck equipment. When we buy a truck, sometimes it takes a 2-year build out. We're able to get a discounted price on the tools that we need. There's no storage space for it at all. So he does house that, including some bunker gear. When we hire new employees, they're all stored in his office. Our current Fire Station 1 is not just a station, but a home with our specialized units, which play a crucial role in supporting services throughout the city and backing up the surrounding stations. It currently has reserve ambulances, reserve fire trucks, and specialty trucks such as brush truck, heavy rescue, tower truck. The apparatus bays have been modified to maximum height to fit current apparatuses. We are unable to have a drive-through bay for added safety. Some of our vehicles do not fit in the height and space available at our current station. We store currently engine 1, 2 ambulances, a tower truck, a heavy rescue, and a brush at Station 1. Our district truck has to park outside because there's not enough available footprint. Our tower truck measures 11 feet 6 inches. The opening is 11 feet 8 inches. We only have a 2-inch clearance to actually get that tower truck inside of Station 1, and the header's already been cut twice with steel plates added. And currently, we have some trucks where if we need to move an aerial apparatus into Station 1 because the tower truck's out of service, or it's getting maintenance, it does not fit inside the bay. That's why typically you might see our Quint truck as far as parked right outside on that apron. There's NFPA recommendations for fire stations that cannot be achieved with our current limitations. Some of those are the ventilation systems. Our power is actually maxed out in that building. There's no clean room, storage rooms for bunker gear. Our sleeping areas, NFPA recommends that there's 60 square feet at a minimum for the sleeping areas. And we're pushing that. With 16 beds, we're at capacity. We cannot fit another bed upstairs. And key things for improvement of the health and safety of our firefighters, a new alerting system, catching up to date with these modern recommendations from NFPA. Next would be Fire Station number 7 with an approximate cost of $6 million. Fire Station 7 is a must as the city continues to grow. Several major projects are under construction or have been permitted already on the northwest side of town. Apopka Fire Department is a full-service fire department. We respond to all calls involving fire, medical, hazardous materials, and other emergencies throughout the city. Under our contractual agreement, the department provides aid to Station 29's contracted area of Orange County and mutual aid to Lake County and other parts of Orange County. Station 29 and Station 5's area would be rezoned and provided further coverage for Station 7. One thing that we'd like to move forward, if this does go forward with Station 7, is a location study. There's companies out there that utilize algorithms, data-driven decisions as far as for the placement of the station, where we could overlap our coverages. We could see based off of our city GIS, our incident management system, where we're running our calls, response times based off of NFPA, response times based off of ISO, where we should actually put a fire station, where we can move it, where it would be best centralized, where we could overlap that coverage for those zones that are needed. When an emergency occurs, the fire department's role is to arrive on scene as quickly as possible and as safely as possible to provide assistance. An average EMS response time is about 4 to 6 minutes, and an average fire response is about 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Service demands continue to increase as more new homes and commercial buildings are built and the density and population of the specific areas increase. With Station 7 in the Northwest area, we're hearing talks of future hospitals, schools, multifamily structure, commercial structures development, and industrial development. The city will be experiencing a rapid growth in the Northwest with potential expansion of city limits. Development will impact our fire department services, and we must be ready for it. We know of communities such as Wild Oaks, Kelly Park Crossing. Those developments will impact our fire department services. Station 7 marks a crucial improvement for accommodating an expanding population on the city's northwest region. The need for a new fire station and emergency medical services to service the northwest region is undeniable with the area's population's growth and need to reduce emergency response times. Coverage and response standards provide fire and EMS services to those designated areas, adhere to industry standards and responses of NFPA 1710. And to be very specific for it, we'll take a first alarm structure fire. Currently, a structure fire is going to get a first due engine that's going to be arriving. There is a time that we have to be, and we have to be there in about 5 minutes and 20 seconds. For that northwest area, the planned Station 7 response zone, it might take that 5 minutes and 20 seconds for that first unit to arrive. The remaining units are going to be responding as a first alarm to that call, have only up to 9 minutes and 20 seconds to arrive. And that might seem doable, but right now our current tower is here at Station 1. It would have to make it on scene within 9 minutes and 20 seconds to be compliant. And when we start thinking about Ondage, Round Lake, Sadler, there's no way possible that they can make it there in a safe amount of time without having a station towards that area. And even with Station 5 being so close to it, with the traffic and the growth and the density, that's still going to be a challenge for a tower truck to actually make to its response zone within that time. We need to create we need to create space for future growth of the department. A new fire station is an investment in the safety and the health of our community and its residents. The value we place in our fire zones and the value we place in our homes and area. Do you have any questions at this time?
So right now, as we just hired, how many recently of the firefighters?
Right now, we have during our new hire orientation, we have 4 individuals going through, and we just graduated 10.
And where are they staying?
They're dispersed throughout the city. What we've actually done is in the past, Station 1 used to be the training hub where we housed everybody here, and it made it complicated. We've expanded and outfitted our outline stations to its max capacity of 6, and we've actually placed these individuals at the surrounding stations because we could not add any additional growth here at Station 1.
So how many can we house in the current firehouses that we have? Like number 2, which is Welch.
Correct.
How many can you house?
That station has been modified. We're at 7 at max capacity at Station 2.
That's maximum.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we have the one by number 3, which is where all the flooding is at right now. Were we affected by that flooding?
No, ma'am, not at the fire station.
Okay. And how many are housed in that one?
That is total capacity of 6.
6.
And the key thing is with these outline stations, we're at the point where we're maxing out the capacity, but we're at the point that we need to start looking at the future of co-ed living and the dormitories, individual housing, as far as where they have their separate rooms, just like Station 5. That is the standard. Unfortunately, right now with the footprint of these current stations, it's really hard to modify a Station 4 unless you did a complete restructuring of it. And
Yeah, because I mean, when I've toured the different stations, what I've noticed is, yeah, that you've accommodated the body,
correct.
but when I see their gear, their boots, all that is sort of in spaces that I think is a little bit hazardous, and it's because you just don't have a facility to separate their gear from them or from where they eat or where they kind of just socialize. So that is a concern, and when they respond to different calls, and their gear needs to be cleaned, where do you put that?
So right now we have extractors at Station 1 and Station 5, which is like a washing machine just for
Right,
their gear. They're able to actually wash them there. We're moving forward with placing as far as further extractions with Station 6.
right.
That's going to be up to date as far as the codes for NFPA recommendations. They're going to have their individual rooms. They're going to have a clean room for their bunker gear. They're going to have a dirty area where they can wash their gear. Everything's up to code. And that is the goal as we progress and move forward, as we remodel stations, is to make sure that we build a footprint large enough that we could accommodate for those requirements.
So are we allocating in our budget right now until these facilities, this new public safety building for you comes on board? But are we allocating anything in our budget to make sure that you retrofit any of the station houses? Are we doing that, or are we just kind of just
We're actually working forward or working right now with facilities as far as this is something that all of our stations, they've had huge improvements. Please do not get me wrong. We are very thankful of everything that you've allocated towards us, and we're continuing to expand on that. We want to move forward. There's key things that we need to start looking at is the retrofit of certain stations, possibly a rebuild of certain stations. And these are things that we're working with facilities right now and additional contractors.
yeah? Because the the main building that we're building, the fire, is really going to accommodate what, one firehouse, but we still have all the other outside firehouses that we have to kind of bring them up to
Correct.
standards.
Yeah, with Station 6 currently being built, hopefully, as far as with Station 1, the Public Safety Complex, and the Station 7, that's a good portion as far as of our newer stations with Station 5. But this is a continuous upkeep. This is something that we're trying to build a schedule with facilities and re-looking at it. Fortunately, as far as our stations were built phenomenally as far as in the beginning, and they were great. It housed enough people. As the city has expanded, those were kind of left behind in the past, and we need to catch up to date with them now.
So Station 7, I didn't quite hear. Where are we planning to put Station 7?
We do not have an actual piece of land allocated just yet, but we are looking as far as on the northwest side of town, as far as somewhere
In the KPI.
in the KPI.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of that specifically, you said there's like an algorithm that can be built or created that will show us kind of the best response times and meet some NFPA standards. Does that have to be done once the KPI is built out, or can we do it as if it's built out?
As it's built out right now, we could actually move forward with that. That
Okay.
study will look at our current stations right now, where they're located at. In future growth, they will actually designate other areas where you should position, and then based off of what our operations are with our tower trucks. We also do have a tower truck coming for next October. It will be housed currently at Station 5, hopefully with a plan of Station 7. In that algorithm, we can make that data-driven decision. Should we house it permanently at 5, or should it be going to Station 7?
Nice. Okay. And then in reference to the safety complex, with those plans that are years old now, and the way that it sits, does that give you enough space to grow into? Or is it at capacity and not what we need 10 years from now?
With the plans that were presented before we met with the architect again, it was at capacity. And speaking with the architect the day that you guys moved forward with putting that through, he did explain to myself and Chief McKinley within the 90-day period, as far as of him moving forward, he'd get back to us to look at our needs assessment and make sure everything is caught up to date. Because I think they originally put that together in 2002 or 2022, and we've outgrown that. And there's some limitations with the space that was allocated for.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And then Station 6, what's the update for that one?
Station 6 is coming along. We were just there yesterday. They're a little bit ahead of schedule. I want to tell everybody we're still on schedule as far as we're expecting for May period, but they're moving along pretty fast. Even with, we wanted to double check with them as far as after the hurricane, is this going to set us back? And they're still moving forward. Concrete's poured, drywall's going in next week. The roof, there's a moisture moisture density that they have to achieve before they could actually move forward with the roof. And once they get there in some dry periods over the next couple of days, then they'll be proceeding with the roof.
So May 25 is
Yes, sir.
not for sure, but confident.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for the update.
Anybody else?
In the $6 million that you have appropriated for Station 7, does that include the acquisition of land as well for that station?
No, sir. That is just for the build out of it.
And the city doesn't currently own any land in that area, correct?
We don't know just yet as far as depending on the build out, possibly the study of where it should be going as far as that fire station. Then we'd look at, okay, does the city own any land? And then obviously get with the commission here to see if that's available for
So
us.
should we be,
Well, we've got not a formal commitment, but Orlando Health has given us commitment to carve us out enough land on their property to put a fire station.
a fire station, or is this going to be a temporary one like we had at Advent Health?
No.
A
Fire
real station?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, and just want to make sure that that is within the algorithm that you guys are also tracking to make sure it's in the right location.
Yes, sir.
So although that is nice that we have land being donated, we want to make sure it is for response times and serves our residents best.
Anybody else? All right.
Thank you.
Chief. Mr. Williams. Last but certainly not least.
Tough crowd to follow for sure. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Radley Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. This evening, I'll go over some of the higher level or larger projects that were proposed in the capital improvement plan for impact fees, starting with land acquisition for level service maintenance. We utilize the National Recreation Park Association agency performance review. They do that annually, and it basically takes a look at agencies throughout the country. They'll break down a slew of data, sizes of facilities, types of facilities, number of facilities, and then they'll also benchmark it against similar sized communities. So a typical park and recreation agency currently has 10.6 acres of parkland per every 1,000 residents. So that's the current level of service seen across the nation. Our current comprehensive plan calls for a level of service of 3 acres per 1,000, and we're currently achieving right around that 7.8 mark. So we're outperforming the established level of service, but we are falling behind in the national standard for level of service and park acreage.
Before you go, 10.6 acres per 1,000
Residents, yes.
residents.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, and as I put there, we're currently at a 7.8 based off of the latest April population data provided by Community Development. When you look at our parkland throughout the city, the northern area of the city definitely has the lion's share of the acreage
Thank you.
at 307 acres out of the 479 acres. With continued growth and development, additional parkland will be required to achieve the 10-acre level of service, with a focus on the southern and middle portion of the city to kind of boost that area and ensure the residents have adequate access to the park and recreation facilities. And similar to what Chief was mentioning about the fire station location studies, I did put some money in the budget, the current budget, to start and undertake a park system master plan, which takes a look at the entire system, current park land that we have, current facilities we have, types of facilities, will help us design a plan to grow with the city residents and identify the best places for those new facilities. Aquatic facility for the national average for 60,824 residents, they call typically one aquatic facility. As we all know, right now we have one pool at Camp Weewa. It's a 184,000 gallon pool and has a max capacity of 130 people, but it's a camp pool. It does not provide an aquatic facility service. So it's not best equipped for recreational style swimming. As we mentioned in the past, its minimum depth is 5 feet, which makes it challenging for the young campers, younger swimmers, or people learning to swim. It can't really host any large or mid-range athletic programming, and its amenities lack in the respect that we don't have showers over there. We don't have a restroom right at the pool deck. We don't have any pool operations. When the schools come out and do swim meets, parking's a challenge, and there's no bleacher areas. So hosting events like that, aquatic facility events, are a challenge of that pool. So that's something that was put for consideration in the capital improvement plan. When we look at additional athletic fields needed, we break them down into two fields. Baseball and softball fields are diamond sport fields, and soccer are multi-purpose fields. We've looking at 2024 data, the average nationally is 3,675 residents per diamond field. If you look at our current field inventory, we have 14 diamond fields. So if you do the average there, that would mean we'd need 16 to meet the national average. So we're currently deficient 2 fields. Of note, if we are awarded the TDT grant, that will of course bring us 4 additional diamond fields. So it'll put us a little bit into the positive, but at current resident rate. So residents are continuing to grow. So if we're looking towards the future, we would quickly fall behind on that with an average or with an add of 3,600 residents. Additional multi-purpose soccer fields. The average nationally for that is 4,070 residents per rectangular field. When you put that into our current field inventory, we have 17 rectangular multi-purpose fields. National average would be 16 for our current makeup. So we're currently surplus of 1. But again, as new construction continues and residents come back in, we will very quickly need more field space based on the national average. And we are, as you know, adding 6 additional fields at Northwest Recreation Complex. So I wanted to go ahead and include that number. So that would cover an additional 28,000 residents added to the city. So we do have a little buffer there in the rectangular field. Where the consideration would come in is, again, as we continue to grow, and if we're looking to expand our park system to provide more opportunity to the mid and the south part of the city, we'd definitely look at adding some of those rectangular fields down in those areas. Artificial turf field conversions. There's just some basic pluses to at least having some of these fields in the inventory. It increases year-round playability of the athletic fields. We've really started to ramp up and improve our maintenance program and maintenance plan annually for our athletic turf fields, which means that we do have to take fields offline more frequently throughout the year for rest and maintenance and repair. You still have to maintain the turf fields, the artificial turf fields, but it's a much less impact on the schedule, and also reduce the number of rainouts due to weather conditions. And current budget estimate, you're a little over $1 million per field without lights. Add probably closer to $2 million plus with lights. So with that amount requested, we could approximately get 12 new artificial fields without lights. Cut that into half if we were to do them with lights. And we look at some diamond sport fields and some multi-purpose fields. So we'd have a mix of the 2 types of fields. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Radley?
So are all these additional fields that we are kind of recommending, are they all for organized teams, or are any of them going to be so that residents can just kind of walk up and organize, and use the field? Because at Kitland Nelson Park, that's what I see every afternoon. I just see the cars come and the families come and they kind of set up, and it's not organized. It's really community oriented.
Right, open play,
So
community play.
do we have that ability at Northwest? Because right now I think it's all organized.
Yeah, Northwest is definitely more organized play, more sports teams, practices, games. And that would be a consideration in the master planning process for the park system, to have those different levels of fields. So you're going to have your fields for the games and the competitive side. You're also going to want some fields for more open play, community play. That still are a higher quality, but as you say, are more walk-up play fields, which Currently, the Northwest fields have walk-up ability as well. But if we're trying to maintain that complex into a higher level tournament complex, again, there's some cost benefit to that too.
Mm. Okay.
So yes, in short, yes, we can. Some of those fields could be allocated for more community walk-up.
And then I know you, the aquatic facility, I mean, so you're looking to really bring the pool to Camp Weewa.
It doesn't have to be Camp Weewa. We have talked about redoing that pool at Camp
Yeah,
Weewa.
because I feel like we need a more centralized aquatic facility that would, benefit both, the Apopka on the south side, because we have a lot of schools, and then also on the north and east and west. And I feel like if we just concentrate with Camp Weewa, the way we run in Camp Weewa would really limit the ability for just regular residents to come with their families and just, use the aquatic and use the pool.
Right, and the Camp Weewa pool could remain a camp pool. It could remain that. The aquatic facility could be at a different location, as you mentioned. That's better fit
Yeah,
for more use and for the style of use that we're looking for. So it'd be more a destination of its own.
right,
Whereas Camp Weewa is the destination
right.
that houses some of this other stuff for the pool. Yeah, but
Where would you consider to have a centralized?
I would wait until we go through the master planning process with a consultant to kind of really pick out and help identify the best fit. And it also ties into what other land acquisition do we need to get to find that best fit.
Mhm.
So, which is why we've put some funding in for land acquisition.
Are we kind of build out in the middle of Apopka anywhere? Do we have anything in that's centralized?
As far as city land,
Yeah,
uh, I mean, you have Edwards Field. There's opportunity there if there's some renovation. I don't know if you'd put an aquatic facility there, but maybe some more athletic fields. The AAC, Apopka Athletic Complex, could potentially be a rebuild with some new fields. But then there's going to have to be some additional land because that acreage needs to increase as well.
yeah.
But very similar to like Chief said, you do a master plan, you kind of identify the areas that you already serve, and there's different ratios that you try and get as far as levels of service for different types of amenities in the park world.
So like the old Apopka Hospital has a lot of acreage. Have we ever considered kind of partnering with them or them donating some land to the community to create an aquatic facility there?
We and actually I've had some conversations with staff from Orange County Public Schools and Advent Health about interest in an aquatic facility because again the Apopka High School and Wekiva High School have used Camp Weewa for their swim teams. They can't use it for the water polo side of it because it's not the right
Not deep, no.
type of pool. But there is some interest with some parties in the community to potentially go that route, but nothing committed or anything along those lines yet. Just initial discussions about what could be needed and what could be utilized.
Yeah, because I did speak to Advent Health about, the old building, because they have a lot of acreage back there. And I mean, we've supported Advent Health in everything that they've built in our community. And yes, they provide a service, but, I just feel that their old facility is just sitting there. And I feel like that would be advantageous to them to create something or partner with us in creating something that the community can come and use, especially an aquatic facility. They have the space, and I think it's centrally located. in
Right.
Apopka.
And without speaking for them, like I said, we've had some initial talks, but
Yeah.
an aquatic facility is definitely one of those facilities that you want to look for partners to
Oh, yeah.
participate with, whether it be the school board, Advent Health, or a hospital, because it's a large lift on
It
that
is.
type of facility. Not only construction but also operating. So you want to make sure you have partners in place to help bear that burden of bringing that to the community.
That was something we were supposed to do, or we thought we were going to do with Camp Weewa. I mean, that's another story for another day, but definitely we need others to partner with us to absorb some of the burden of just the upkeep, maintenance, or any of it.
Yeah, and this is the plan to try and start building some funds to have that ability to have more serious discussions about that type of facility or any of these type of facilities in the future.
Anybody
But-
else with
But
questions?
this is not going to be on the 5-year plan, is it? This one, the aquatic.
That's the purpose of these meetings. We're trying to
Okay.
discuss, and we're trying to build that 5-year plan right now. But as we build that plan, we're also trying to share with you the impact that it can have on funding those plans, from a police impact fee, fire impact fee, recreation impact fee, and a general obligation bond. So that's the objective here.
So any other
Okay.
questions for Bradley before Blanche takes over?
I got a couple. So the land acquisition, it's 20.2 million, not to renovate like Dream Lake Park or anything like that. It's exclusively to purchase more land to use for parks.
That correct. So purchase more land for parks to get us to that proposed new 10 acre per thousand, which is proposed in the new comp plan, which again is close to the new national average, 10.6, 10. If we hit that mark, it's been around that 10 mark for a while now. So
Okay.
I think we're pretty safe at that number, and it's definitely an increase from where we're at 3. So again, we're outperforming the current comp plan, but that number is out of date for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we did budget, I guess, some type of plan to look at or retool the Camp Weewalt pool. That would still move forward if we do an aquatic facility.
If we're looking more towards aquatic facility, that could change the shape of that to then minimize or lessen the scope of that Weewalt pool,
Which I think is smart.
and kind of reel that back into just a camp pool. Again, it's going to need a new pool at some point if we want to keep that level of service at the camp, but design it to where it's a little bit easier entry, maybe 0 depth entry, and then also some areas that we could do some swim lessons at that pool as well for the camp. But yeah, we could tighten the scope in on that if there's a desire to move towards a larger aquatic facility.
Yeah, I had said this before. I think it's going to be a 7-figure number to try to retool that pool at Weewalt, and that I don't think it's right to do with the funds that we're losing already there. On the turf side, we had discussed this. We want to do athletic or artificial turf, but in our code, we don't let residents put turf in their yard. So I feel it's not fair to our residents.
I think that'd be a discussion for community development
Agreed.
and council, and kind of maybe discuss the pros and cons of that.
Sure.
There are definitely pros on the athletic park and rec side of that component.
Sure.
But to your point, if there's discussion to have on the code on what the resident can do in their yard,
And
that would be the time to talk about it, because it's
Yeah,
being presented. in a way.
Exactly. And I think to your point, bringing in community development to give their feedback on it as well, because I know it had to do with making sure it was good for the environment, things like that, that it wasn't heating up things, that there was enough water percolation, things like that. So I just want to make sure that we're being fair with not only with our residents, but with what we're doing as well as the
Right.
city. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith? anything?
Good.
Good. Commissioner Anderson? Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Blanche?
So next, I'm going to bring up Mr. Henry Thomas with Raf Tillis, and he's going to give you an overview of the impact fees, basics, the legal considerations, the extraordinary circumstances requirements, the fee calculation methodology, some of the major assumptions, and the existing and calculated fees. Okay. I'm going to do this. Okay.
We don't have this electronically. I'm going to ask you before you begin. Is it possible for us to get this electronically?
I will email it to you.
All right, thank you.
Nobody likes paper anymore.
No.
I'm still an old school paper guy, unfortunately.
That's it. I'm with you with that.
Good evening, Henry Thomas, Vice President, Raftalis Financial Consultants. Uh, this is going to be an interesting discussion because we're going to talk about impact fees and what they can do towards your aspirations. And you know, I live right next to this community. I think this is all great stuff that we're looking at, but the trick is going to be how we fund it and the timing of the projects. And what I'd like to start with is share with you, you know, just for the record, what impact fees are used for. It's a charge to new development to pay for their share of the increase in capacity and needs for municipal services. And in this case, we're talking police, fire, and recreation. So, you know, the fees have been governed largely by case law for probably the last close to 50 years now. But in recent years, the state stepped in and implemented a Florida impact fee statute. And that statute has been updated from time to time. And it's gotten more difficult for us to use this as a funding source because of those updates. And there's just more steps we have to go through. You know, one of the things that is in both the case law and the statute is that the fees must be reasonably equitable to all properties, and there's a dual rational nexus. In other words, the fees are based on the projects.
Oh, we can get you so you can move the slide.
I'm sorry. Which one do I want to push?
I do the up and down, but you can do whatever you want. But she's gonna make it bigger for you.
Okay. Okay.
You can do that.
Okay, so we, you know, again, fees are paid by new development, growth related. And then the dual rational nexus test is an important one. It says that we have to put the project, to develop the fees, we have to demonstrate the projects that are going to drive that fee. And then when we collect the money, we have to spend the money on the projects we put in the fee. An important aspect of that is that when you look at the case law and you consider where we're at in time, is that we cannot ask new growth to pay for a higher level of service than the existing customers are paying for. In other words, we can have a higher level of service, we can aspire to that, but that has to be shared equally between new growth and existing as well. So for example, we just talked about going from eight roughly acres per thousand population to 10. We can fund some of that from impact fees, but some of it has to be funded from existing citizens and taxpayers because they have to share in increasing that standard. The other thing that's important to note is that, and this is again where it gets real critical to consider what we commit to, is that when we choose to set the fees based on these projects, it's my belief anyway, and I don't have Mr. Shepard here tonight, but I think he believes the same thing, and practitioners throughout the state do. When we choose to do the projects, we're committing to the project, because otherwise we're charging new growth for a new aquatic center, for example, or for a public administration building. And then over time, if we don't do that, we've charged them for something they didn't get. So we're subject to being challenged and perhaps having to refund the fees if we really are not committed to these projects. So while we want to build the fee up to be able to do these things in the future, that was a good comment that was made by the rec director. But at the same time, we have to be serious about these to go ahead and put them in the fee, because we can't just build up cash and then there's got to be a purpose for it. So that's a real important consideration. The fee has been amended several times, but I want to share with you the most recent stuff. I gave this to you. I don't want to go through every line in this. I give it to you kind of as something you can go and look at. It's pretty comprehensive about the factors. One of the things that the mayor mentioned at the last meeting was we've got to give 90 days notice. We've got to adopt the fees, and then we can't charge them for 90 days. So there's a lag time in being able to collect the revenue there. And an important one, let me just say this, an important one is that in the past, they said specifically in the statute that the government has the burden of proof in any challenge, not the challenger. The government has the burden of proof. And that sort of changed things from the way it was in the past under case law. Now, here's the new stuff that makes it tricky. If we're going to increase impact fees, any increase up to 25% has to be phased in over 2 years. Any increase over 25% is capped at 50 and has to be phased in over 4 years. So if we want to increase our impact fees from $1,000 for a particular service to 2,000, the statute only allows us to go to 1,500, and we have to take 4 years to do it. So essentially what it's saying is we're going to only increase them at 12.5% a year. And we can do that for 4 more years. And ultimately, over a period of time, you might get up to this cost-based fee that we calculate. That's a problem because it really kneecaps your ability to finance these things. Now, they did allow for a workaround on that, and it's called extraordinary circumstances. So what that says is that we can implement the fees beyond and go beyond the phase-in limitations and implement them immediately under the following circumstances. There has to be a demonstrated need study, and it has to justify an increase in excess of the fees and the limits we talked about earlier. And it expressly demonstrates the extraordinary circumstances necessitating the need to exceed the phase-in limits. So the statute doesn't say what that is. It just says there must be this study. And so the police chief did a real good job making his case on the facilities he wants, the training facilities. He mentioned essential needs. For us to implement a police impact fee immediately at the calculated cap and avoid the phase-in, you're going to have to agree and find that that is an extraordinary circumstance, and that's a truly demonstrated need. So I think that we have to be careful to balance that versus aspirations, because a new aquatic center may not, if you got challenged, be demonstrated to be an essential extraordinary need that you have to have right away, and you got to phase towards it. But a police substation or a new fire station could easily be shown as a demonstrated need. I don't know where the administration facility fits into that, the training facilities. Those are facilities we see in really first-class cities. I'd love to see the city get it, but you're going to have to make 2 public hearings. It's going to have to be by a 2/3 vote, and you're going to have to make the finding that these extraordinary circumstances exist and that the needs have been demonstrated, that these are essential, and you have to get on with it. It's a lot easier in utilities when you need new plant capacity, but this kind of stuff, it's a little gray in my mind. But the statute puts the responsibility in your hands. It says you as commissioners and the city commission, you have to have these findings. So if you get challenged, it's going to be based upon the hearings that you have and the findings you come up with. And again, just some of the things that we see use common arguments is we've got a demonstrated need study that documents the essential need for the facilities in question. We have high population growth driving the need for additional capital facilities to maintain our level of service. We have a current inflationary environment and impacts to capital costs, and obviously we've had all these things, and then impacts to existing taxpayers if fees are not adopted, and you still have to do these essential services. And that's kind of the key to it is if you didn't adopt the impact fees and it all had to be borne by tax burden, would you do the project kind of? Because it needs to be in this essential. So we can have those hearings and do that, and we can develop impact fees that'll get you revenue quicker than later. Otherwise, it kind of makes the whole program move out. And keep in mind, when we set these fees, we're anticipating that we're going to do these things. So we're making that commitment. Now, the other part of the case law, we can't hold the money forever. We better hold it. If If it's the part of the fee that's going to pay for a new public safety facility and we're not ready to build it yet, we're going to collect it over the next couple of years. We better hold on to it for that express purpose. At the same time, if we hold on to them too long, again, the counter argument is, well, where's my safety facility? You said you needed it and you haven't built it yet. And case law, and of course that can change, but 7 years has been kind of a basis. So we need to think about starting to spend the money within 7 years of collecting it. And again, these are things that relate to how we implement it, and they've become very critical because the statute's very specific. I'm not going to go into the fee methodology a lot. I'm going to share with you what we calculated, but I'm not going to bore you with all the specifics of how we do it. We can get into that more before you end up adopting these rates if you would like. But, basically we do it per household. We have different factors for multifamily household. We have factors for different kinds of businesses, and it's presumably based upon the demand for services. So for example, the recreation fee isn't paid by commercial, but the police and fire certainly do. And we look at call data, we look at, square footage, we look at a lot of things, what we call functional population, where people are at any given time, whether they're at home or work. So that's kind of the fee thing. Some of the assumptions, one that I'm going to mention here is real critical to how this all falls out, is we've grown historically about 2.5% in recent years. We're looking at this because these are major facilities that presumably are to take us to build out. If we build a new police and fire public building, that's got to be a lasting investment. So we looked at through 2050, and we were provided by your planning department that we're projected to have a population of 92,000. So basically, and that's their view of the build out population currently. Now, that means we're about 2/3 there right now. We're about 2/3 there. Just at the bottom of this, I want to recap real quickly the assets you currently have. Police has about 10.7 million in assets. So we're talking about going from 10 million in assets to over 100 million. Fire has 18.6. They've got that $32 million of their public safety facility. And Parks has about 24.9 million. So this is going to be a big increase in your investment in these services. So then this just shows the various fees. If we want to come back to this, because I'm going to go to a summary that puts it in form of single family residential, which is the most common, and it will talk about some issues here. So let me go ahead on these and go to here. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. There's only one. Okay, so the police department. Existing fee is $747 per unit. The maximum calculated fee that the projects that you've gone over tonight with the police chief would bring us to $1,354. It's an increase of $607 per household. The statutory limit, however, if we don't have that finding of extraordinary circumstances, would only take us to $1,120. Now, below, we just put in context what the two pieces are worth on a per single family unit basis. The training facility is about 776, and the public administration facility portion for police is about 496. But and I'm going to go through the other two too, but before we do that, and this is where I think you have to weigh your decision making, is what we did is I saw this big increase in assets, large capital plans, and the impact fees, the growth in the impact fees don't scare me that much because communities are seeing the impact fees go up everywhere. But what I did was I said, okay, if we had to bond all this, it's roughly $220 million is what we've been presented tonight in total. And if we did that in a bond, even if it was in two issues, but ultimately, once we fully funded it, because it's like a mortgage. We're not going to save up the money through the impact fees to pay for it. We can at best use the impact fees to pay some portion of the debt. But what would that debt be? Well, at 5.5% interest over 30 years, we're talking about $15.5 million a year to fund $220 million capital plan. Police department's share of it is 7.5 million. That would equal equal annual debt service or 48%, 7.5 million. 48% or 18% for the fire department will be 2.8 million, and 34% to Parks and Recreation would be about 5.2 million. So that would be their allocated share of the debt service. Now, I didn't calculate it for Parks and Rec yet, but on the police, the impact fee at the phase in at the end of 4 years would bring in $828,000 a year. So that would be the fourth step. If we did the extraordinary circumstance, it's about 20% higher, or 1 million a year. So you'd have impact fees coming in about $1 million a year, but you'd have debt associated with their program of 7.5 million a year. So, I'm looking at, I'm not a general government expert per se. I'm more of a enterprise fund expert, but I kind of understand how it works. And you got different revenue sources, and the one that's going to take the hit is your tax base, your general fund, your not ad valorem taxes, and that's going to mean that when I look at the total, again, fire department, they would take in at the maximum about 913,000 a year, at the phase in 761. So again, if you do these programs, and that's why I say it's important we really think through it and decide, because once we commit them to the impact fees, we're committing the taxpayers to a 2/3 share of it. And that's that where we are today versus where we're going to be at build out, because these facilities, almost every one of them, isn't an incremental facility that's just serving new growth. It's a facility that's going to reinvigorate and serve the entire community. So the way we look at it is, the growth can only pay roughly 1/3 of it, and 2/3 of it is going to have to be borne by taxpayers. So that's really what I mean. I wanted to stress to you the implementation factors, and then I just thought again as an observation that I don't want us to make decisions about impact fees without the context of what it could do to the overall budget to the city to do these things, and that's. I mean, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions, but I was going to tell you the fees. Oh, and the pieces. So let me go back to that real quick. So this was the one for police. This is the one for fire. So again, existing fee 708, maximum calculated 1030, and then the statutory limit at 50% is 1030. So the fire department fee, we can go to the max, but again, we'd have to phase it in over 4 years or have extraordinary circumstances allow it to do it immediately. And then you can see what the pieces of the pie are in terms of the safety complex as a unit cost, and the station and the related vehicles associated with that is only $132 per unit out of that increase of 322. So, and then finally the rec fee, again, pretty ambitious program. Existing fee 1060, the calculated all-in fee, again, this is not getting shared by the commercial community, is 3,068, an increase of $2,008. Statutory limit would bring you to 1,590, or an increase of 530. I think of all the services, and I don't mean to pick on Parks and Rec, but this is the one that's probably the most aspirational and would, in my view, take the hardest decision making to say these are essential needs, because these are good things. I mean, every community I worked with in Florida that's a first class utility has a first class rec program, and there's aquatic facilities out there that are really nice. But again, a lot of them got built many years ago. That's one thing with the inflation. But again, there's a big lift there. If you're going to do these projects, impact fees just can't pay the whole burden of it. So.
Okay. All right. Questions for Henry or questions for Blanche?
I have a question about the demonstrated needs study. Have we started that study already? Is it so each department has their own study, the demonstrated needs study?
Well, I
That
mean,
reference in extraordinary circumstances?
yes, ma'am. For each of the services, we'd have a demonstration. Now, I think what
It
I
hasn't
heard
been done yet.
tonight, what I heard tonight from each department
Mhm.
was their case for demonstrated need. So we would need to turn that in. And it doesn't say it needs to be a third party study. It doesn't say it needs to be a tomb or a report. It says a demonstrated need study. So, for example, the police chief gave his rationale why he thinks these are needed, what the benefits are, and you could accept that as a demonstrated need study. But that's for y'all to decide. The statute doesn't help you, and I can't. I'm not going to guess at what it's going to take. But I think the elements of it are here. It's just do we how strongly we believe this is something that in a challenge we could support.
If you would, if you would go back and give us the figures again of what the impact would generate per year
Yes,
as
sir.
to what it would cost us.
Yes, sir. So if I take let's start with all the programs because I didn't do the rec individually. I'll have to give you that, but I did the whole thing in the aggregate. It's 15.5 million in debt service, and at the maximum fee, you would get about 4 million a year. And the statutory fee at the end of 5 years, you'd get about a little over 2 million a year. So again, there's a pretty big gap there. And I gave it to you before for the police department. It was 7.4 million in debt service roughly, and at the maximum fee with extraordinary circumstances, we collect about 1 million a year. Now, I would submit to you that you're probably going to collect a little more than that early on because we're looking at growth over the long term here. So this is the average annual revenue, and you're going to grow a little faster, obviously, in the next few years than you're going to grow over the next 20 years. But that being said, you're still going to have a significant gap between what the impact fees can fund and what it's going to cost to implement these new infrastructure needs.
What was fire departments? Do you have that?
Fire
number, their
department
income?
was the debt was 2.79 million, and the revenue is at the phase in it was 761, and at the cap maximum, the maximum, it was 913. And again, those phase ins are not year 1, 2, or 3. That's year 4. So that's after 3 years of 12.5% increases. And so some of them you're going to have to keep phasing them in. And the other thing the statute says is you can only do the study once every 4 years now. So we would presumably update it, see where we are then, and then extend out the phase in if we need to, if you do choose to phase in. If you choose extraordinary circumstance, we've got it done. But again, I just want to make sure if we go through that exercise and we adopt these fees, that with clear eyes, we know that we're also committing to these programs. And, otherwise, I guess we could, in a contingency basis, plan on if we don't do them, what would we do with that money? But this is what the rational nexus kind of says. We got to base the fee on real projects. So in the rec part of the debt was 5.27 million. I apologize, but I did not calculate the impact, but I think it's roughly about 3 million a year at the max. So I'll verify that number and I'll get it to you.
Yeah, if you could put all three of those in a.
I'll give you a spreadsheet and I'll
Yep,
send it
that-
to
that-
Blanche
yep,
and she can
yep.
share it.
Sure, okay, thank you. All right.
Do you have another question?
No.
Okay. I got a few questions. Thank you for the presentation. That's very helpful. And if we can get the presentation posted on the website just so that it's there and also emailed to us just so the residents can see it as well. So if our needs change or costs change for a project, the aquatic center, instead of 20 million, it's 35 million. Are we on? We're just on the hook for that.
Well, I mean, you could scale back the project.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and you can in 4 years update the study. But that's the problem is if it goes from 20 million to 35 million today, you can't update the fee for 4 years.
Okay.
But you could scale back the project. I mean, $20 million aquatic center is probably a pretty nice facility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of splash pads and a lot of good stuff. But, you know, I'm sure there's lesser versions of any of these things, probably lesser versions of, you know, public safety buildings. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, so
So if I find extraordinary circumstances, I can go as high and as fast as I want to implement.
is that calculated fee? Is
Okay.
in the table, the one that says calculated fee.
Okay.
Well, but that means you can adopt them immediately.
Right.
So when you say as fast, we can
yeah.
adopt the calculated fees immediately.
Okay. All right, so we don't have to.
And that would be like 3,000 for rec, you know, and the difference between police and fire and the maximum is not that great, but rec, it's pretty different.
It's substantial, yes.
Yeah.
And then, am I able to designate some of the projects within each department as extraordinary circumstances and some as not, or is it kind of a all are extraordinary, all are not?
You know, nobody's asked me that question before. You know, so that's a challenging one, but I think it's an all or nothing proposition.
Okay.
It's a single fee. Now, what I will tell you is this. Some communities take those fees, they put it in the rec fund, their police fund, and then they spend it on the things that are legitimate capital expansion. Others, like my client in Panama City Beach, they actually earmark within the fee collection because it's all based on numbers. Then they'll say, okay, X amount is for the pool every year. And they'll actually take it to each level in terms of what they put it away for, if you will.
I like that level because you know exactly where we're at then as we're getting it.
Well, their attorney thinks it's the perfect rational nexus. I mean,
Sure.
It's as tight as can be. However, I will say this, and this is an opinion that you may want Cliff to weigh in on too, because I don't want to practice law. But if you choose to change the plan, you can do that. But you have to have, for the fee to stay where it is, it has to be something of equal value, if you will. You get what I'm saying?
Sure. Absolutely.
Because you're not locked in forever to a plan if circumstances merit something different. But again, you know, when you're talking about public safety facilities, that's a pretty, you know,
It's staying. It's not dynamic.
it's not going to
that's a
change to
need.
something else and be that expensive.
Sure.
But you might end up saying, well, we can only do a, you know, $80 million facility.
Sure.
How can we get there? Or we can, you know, we have to put the training facility off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's what I need from y'all to help me finalize this is what you're willing to commit to. And do you want to do the extraordinary circumstances? And, you know, I think you can do that by service, but not necessarily by project.
Projects.
That's what I would tell you.
Okay, understood. And then you had said we can't do a study or increases it more than every 4 years. If I find extraordinary circumstances, can I do it annually if I wanted to?
You know, I want to go back and read it again more carefully, and I'd like Cliff to weigh in.
Sure.
I think that up in the beginning it says once every 4 years,
Mhm.
and then it says what you can do to exceed the phase ends. It doesn't really. I don't think it really addresses.
That
Can you do
timeline.
it in 2 years?
Because I know that's something we discussed, and it's not necessarily this topic here, but it still blends into this conversation is water and wastewater impact fees. We discussed this during budget, I think, of kind of reinstituting that, even though we did a water wastewater recently within the last 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't know. Does that? Are
Well,
we?
Without getting into all the detail, there's an argument to be made that they're exempt from this statute.
Okay.
But again, I'm going to leave Cliff to discuss that with you more because I work in many jurisdictions, and sometimes in Mount Dora they adopted a $7,500 sewer impact fee,
Wow.
and they did it immediately. But they did have an extraordinary. They decided that they thought they were exempt, but in abundance of caution, they did an extraordinary circumstance hearing
Just in case.
because they needed the capacity.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's something I think we definitely need to look into for the water wastewater side. Again, that's not tonight's topic, but definitely something that I think would be valuable for us down the road. And I think again it may have been valuable to have our attorney here too to help kind of bounce off these questions to make sure we kind of have a full answers moving forward. But that's okay. I appreciate all your expertise here, and I'll make sure to follow up with the attorney to get some of those kind of refined answers moving forward.
Cliff
Yeah.
was not available. I mean, he was here when we set the meeting. I think he said it that night that he was not available.
I mean, he shared his thoughts with me on this, and I think I'm being consistent, but I would prefer you
Yeah,
to
some fun,
get it
absolutely,
directly from him.
completely agree. I want to make sure we're on the up and up. Absolutely.
Yes. All right. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. Appreciate all your work.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Been a valuable asset to the city for sure.
Definitely. So, and I don't know how we want to move forward. How he looks at me. How you want to move forward? I mean, again, he shared with you the impact, and it's some major decisions we need to make here.
Do these
And-
have to be made tonight?
Not tonight. We got to come back with the water and wastewater. Basically, what I'm trying to do, we have a 5-year plan that we need to complete as a part of the budget process. So that's what I'm trying to do. But as a result, also we were doing these 4 studies at the same time, and the basis of those studies is the 5-year plan. So that's why, and I don't want people to think that because it's in the plan that it is truly funded.
Right.
Okay? Because
Well,
it's-
and I guess I mean that leads to just way more conversations about bonding, what that looks like on long-term budgets. I mean, because similar to what Mr. Henning was saying, that we're funding 2/3 of that out of general fund. Then it changes a lot of our dynamics.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's hard. I feel it's hard for me to make a decision tonight
Mhm.
to say yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that when we don't. It's a
we
big
don't know if it's financially feasible.
correct.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what everyone needs to understand. You have in our 5-year plan, that first year, FY25, is adopted. That was adopted, that is funded. But those other years are plan years. They are not funded, they are not guaranteed. So we just need to make that clear, and then we can, this is going to be a process right here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
FY 2025 has been adopted.
Yes, ma'am.
So now this plan, the CIP plan, is for 2026 to,
It's 2025 to 2029. The first year is the FY25. The last year is FY29.
okay.
Is it possible to put this on the next agenda or next council meeting to, I guess, come up with final projects? Is that the goal?
No, I'm coming back anyway. I got to bring the water and wastewater as well.
Okay.
So, but we can come back and
So
can
we
do
don't need
more.
decisions tonight.
No, we can do another workshop. We can
Okay.
get some more information from legal counsel, and then discuss having another workshop and we talk at the next council meeting.
Excellent.
Okay, step
Okay.
by step.
So let me. So the new administration building that we're talking about
Mhm.
is not funded.
The new administration building is already in the fee at
Already in
25.
the fee.
It's in the fee back in 2016 at 25 million at that time. And we are using those funds, police and fire impact fee funds, to pay for the design, and everything associated with the public safety building. And remember, we came to you in January of 2024 with a reimbursement resolution, okay, for those purposes, that included the public safety building, Fire Station 7, and some parks and rec projects as well.
Because
So-
it was only up to 125 million, something like that. For
Yeah,
that?
it was like 100 million for public safety,
Mhm.
15 million for fire, 20 million for parks and recs, and 10 million, another
Okay.
10 million.
Yeah.
So we did do that. So we're trying to align things, but what we're sharing with you now is the impact of that. And as we develop our plan, help everyone. I want input from everyone, but I want to be full transparent that that's what that is a plan. It may not necessarily be funded.
I mean, basically, what you're saying, we need to find $11 million in our budget.
If you want to do it,
Is what that? I mean,
if you want to do it. Yeah. In short, That's-
annually $11 million.
yes, annually.
Hmm.
Okay. But we'll have another workshop. Again, we do have to, they've been working on these studies a while. you know, so they want to bring closure to these three. So, and we've already set the rates for FY25 for the water and wastewater. That's why I kept saying we had more time. And I may end up just got to do something to finalize the plan because I need to finish the budget. I got to finish the budget book and everything like that. But we'll talk more about it before it's finalized because again, I want to be very transparent and bring everything here to council for consideration.
All right, but this is not delaying the construction of the,
Not at this time.
oh,
No,
okay, all right.
no. Okay.
We're still moving forward with the
Yes.
public
Yes.
safety building.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, step by step, yes, we are. It's already in the fee. It's just, we got to deal with the
So you're
impact
saying
of
that
that.
in 2016, we had,
You're right. Yeah, we got to deal with that growth impact because that was 25 million back in 2016. When I got here, it was 50 million. Now it's 100 million.
So I guess the question to that too is we had said there was a reference to we kind of need to spend those funds within 7 years for that. Obviously, that's not happening for the original 25 million
I don't
of that
think it was
project.
all 100% coming out of the impact fee.
Well, yeah,
How about him, Tim?
I haven't tried to reconcile the fund, okay? But they did assure me they are spending the money on the facilities, but it's mostly in the planning level at
Okay.
this stage. So you
Gotcha.
could argue we are starting down that road.
So it's all on
Okay.
the soft costs right now that we're
Yeah, that's
understanding.
right. That's
Okay.
right. And you know, something like that, there's a reasonable allowance, you know, but again, I think the worst case would be you put it in the fee and then you never do it. And
Understood.
I think, you know, you're not the only community that is trying to upgrade their infrastructure that see the costs have skyrocketed.
Mhm.
So, it's no wonder you haven't done anything yet because you can't afford it. We have to put these new fees in place.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
So that's it, man.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out.
All right.
We got it? Okay.